be right there. I'm getting my tequila. Hold on, need a tequila. Say hi to Larry the Devil. Larry is spanking Becky. I don't know if you can see it. It's a blonde Barbie doll. Hold on. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday. Every day is happy hour. Every hour is happy hour. Every day is fun day Sunday. Hi. I see Elizabeth is there. I'm going to wait around a little bit before I get started, just a few minutes. It's a YouTube laugh track. I thought I'd start off with something funny. Since we're going to sift through the primordial mud and look at demons, I figured it'd be fun to start off, with some funny shit. All right, let me see. I'm gonna go to my laptop real quick. Give me 1 second. And open up Wanderer's Hollow here. And I can see that I think I'm on here. I just want to give a few minutes for people. And so look, here's the deal. I'm on my iPhone, just to let you guys know. And the iPhone, I can see you guys commenting, but there's a little bit of a lag time. And so I just wanted to let you know that, not for any other reason other than if you're asking me questions or making statements, sometimes I don't see them right as I have said whatever it is you're responding to or whatever. So I just wanted to kind of give you that little fact. So I'm just gonna wait a few, I got maybe 1 more minute, 2 more minutes. Let's see all. I see you, Elizabeth. And I can see, I think other people are watching. And yeah, just gonna wait. There we go. I'm just trying, I wanna make sure that I can actually comment back with you guys. So I'm just wanting to make sure I have all my shit together here. So, all right. Yeah, Terry, I see you now. Okay. Well, this is how I'm going to do it. Hi, my name is Griselda, okay? And I've been invited to come onto Wanderer's Hollow, and I'm really grateful for this because I think this is a really cool platform. It's run by some very great friends of mine. And, I really am excited about being here because I want to connect to a community of people, of women in particular, or anyone else. You can be a non-woman, whatever, that are truly seeking and trying to figure out how to organize this primordial chaos within themselves, right? Because I feel like we're shifting right now. We're all living in a time where we're shifting in this general kind of awareness. And there's a lot of people, this is an understatement, that are actively right now leaving the church. Like right now they're running out of the church somewhere, running. But also metaphorically, they're leaving the church in a way that's like, get me out of here. I can't get out of here as fast as I can. But they don't know where to go. They have a sensibility about something. They don't know what it is. They're seeking, which is exactly what each soul on this planet is going to wind up doing at some point, especially if you have ever suffered. Now, people that don't suffer, well, they don't grow. And so maybe that's very sadomasochistic, right? But maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but this is the way things happen. There has to be a, everything blew up in the universe, and this is how we all became to be. So it was like some traumatic event. The Big Bang was trauma. And so we are still right now existing the after effects of this traumatic event, right? So all of us, no matter where we come from, no matter what, how we identify, our religion, our background with religion, our family, our heritage, our culture, our ethnicity, our nationality, whatever, we all are called at some point in our lives to sort of look at who the hell we are. And for me, it happened, with some trauma. It's like, that's nothing new though, is it? I mean, I think that a lot of people are realizing that now. So I think it's really important right now to if you feel like you're a person who has some knowledge base, to attempt to organize it in however way that is for you. And then I know it's scary to come out and share it with the world like I'm doing this today, right? I mean, I'm not used to doing this, but I'm glad to be doing this, and I'm happy because it's like I have to get it out of myself so that I won't go crazy. And when you get to that point with your knowledge, with some wisdom you feel like you've accumulated, and you feel like if you don't do something with it, you're going to rot on the vine. Well, it's true. It's kind of like you will rot on the vine, right? So you have to find a creative way to express it. First of all, if you don't, you're going to rot on the vine, and then other people can benefit from your labor, right? And this is how nature works. We plant seeds and abundance grows, right? That's not how capitalism works, though. We'll talk about that another time, So basically, what I would like to do here with this platform on Wondrous Hollow is invite you guys to come out here, and if there isn't a place where you can actually confess some things that you feel like you're afraid to confess around what is moral, what is not moral, what is right, what is not right, can I think these things? I have a religious programming. I'm trying to deprogram myself. I don't know how to do that. Maybe just hearing what I said right now hit the nail on the head for people not knowing that they feel something, but not knowing what it is. And that's what it is, kind of like the decolonization of removing all of these false moral constructs that have been put onto us via patriarchy and its religion, right? It's not just Christianity, but Christianity is what has created this postmodern empire, right? We are living in the results of the seed of patriarchy in Christianity in particular. So we can examine all those things. But I want this to be very relaxed conversation. As you can see, I'm wearing my hat, and it's not just because it's Halloween. I'll probably dress like this the whole time, honestly. And who the hell am I to be somehow qualified to do this? These are questions I've been asked. It's like, well, if I'm asked by a person of color, did you go through a white institution so that the white men can say that you are valid? Then we will believe you, even though we don't like the white men. Do you see that disconnection? Like, no. So the way I came to be this priestess and all of that is a really crazy story. I'll share with you guys another time. But it's true, and I'll tell you, I'm Griselda Pacheco, right? That's my name. My spiritual name is Lumen Sophia, and I'm a Neo-Luciferian Gnostic priestess. Some of you guys might understand what that means. Some of you guys might not. If you don't, please ask questions, and I'll answer that. In fact, I'm going to probably spend some time towards the end of this, and I'm thinking it might be an hour, maybe a little shorter, depending on what happens here. So I think that what I'd like to do is just say that I'll take questions. I'll stop and take questions because if I can't answer them while I'm talking. All right, so that's just the thing. So yeah, I was asked to talk about, in particular, this whole idea of colonization. Have you guys are you witches? How do you identify yourself in regards to your spiritual work? Are you looking for a path right now? If you are there particular paths that are calling you that you feel more drawn to? Have you thought about that regarding your ancestors and your sort of like lineage in your body, in your bones, and in your blood? Because that's how I find, I grew up in a house that is Mexican American in Texas, so Santeria was a big deal, and that's a mix of a lot of Catholicism with indigenous work, because that's who we are in our blood, right? So we mixed a lot of Catholicism with this indigenous knowledge of the earth and how to use earthly matters, earthly things to heal and also to curse, to be honest, right? So you got to have all of it. So that's how I grew up. And it was really interesting. My grandmother was always using the little broom from. Have you guys ever seen? What is it? San Martin de Porres. Are you guys familiar with him? He's a saint in the Catholic Church, and he's a black man, black saint. And my grandmother would always use the broom that he carried to cura me, is what she says, the curandera, right? She was a curandera. And she would take all the energies off of me, and with this broom, she'd sweep it. So isn't that interesting, using a broom, right? This metaphor of a broom on a Catholic saint. But fuck the witches, though. Like, this motherfucker was using a broom. What do I know? So that's what she did. And then she had the egg, and she did the egg, right? So this is all clearing away, and then she would crack the egg in a glass, and she would look inside of it to see what face of the person was cursing me, and then she would see the face of the person, and it was always one of my tias or something. It was funny, it was my aunts. Anyway, that's sort of my experience growing up in the household I grew up in. Was my grandmother was a curandera, but she was also a woman in a lot of pain. And I think that's really important to talk about that, because when we talk about our grandmothers, think about your grandmother, right? The lineage of the women that came through your life and that's in your bloodline. And my grandmother was a World War II generation, right? So she had babies, and she, took care of the household. My grandfather went out to work, and they built a house together and things like that. And she was also Latina, right? So she's Mexican American, and she's indigenous as well. So did she ever really know herself? I think about the pain of our mothers and our grandmothers, and how did they ever really get a chance to cultivate a certain level of self-awareness, or were they always in service? And how did that impact their magic? How did that impact, their spirituality and their work? Because it's important to ask that if we are entering any kind of spiritual practice about our mothers in particular, or the lineage of the female is really the most powerful. If you want to enter some kind of spiritual practice, you have to understand what was the female's role in that spiritual practice. The mothers, the grandmothers, what were their roles is the number one question to ask yourself, because that's the mother, that's what gives birth to everything. That is the first, always. It really is the truth. And on just a little bit a branch off that tree, I want to mention this real quick, because I don't want to forget it. And that is, I've always said that women in general, female-bodied people, they have more access to the higher magic, because their bodies are connected to the truth of nature in a way that men's bodies are not. And it has to do with hormones, testosterone, and all these things. And I have noticed, as I have observed, and I'm not a fucking, hating men kind of woman. Don't give me that basic shit. I can't even deal with it. I'm not going to even entertain it at all. You can yell all you want. I don't hear you, because this is just ridiculous. You got to hear what I'm saying. If you're mad, I don't know, be mad. I'm trying to share something that I've observed about magic and about manifestation and access to truth in my own life. And I feel like male-bodied people, although they can practice magic, they don't have the access to they don't know how to deal with and alchemize primordial chaos in the same way that women know how to, because of the testosterone and the estrogen. And I think that has a lot to do with it. What men do most of the time when they get access to this primordial chaos is they destruct. They create destruction. But women, what they do is they create more. They alchemize it and transform it and transmute it. And it's just something about female-bodied people versus male-bodied people. And this is what I think, and this is what I have observed to be true time and time again. And so I think that as women, and if your men are watching, I hope that you will stay around and listen, and not get offended, because I don't mean to offend, but sometimes I do, but I don't mean to offend right now. I'm really just sharing where I'm coming from. And so I think it's so important that if you are a female and you're looking for the next road to take and you're exiting religion, it's important to ask yourself about your grandmother, your mother. And what kind of traumas did they pass on to you? Are you aware that they have passed on these traumas to you? And then why do you think they passed these traumas on to you? What happened to them? And then do you see how one generation begets the next? And I mentioned this before about sin. Sin really means missing the mark. It doesn't mean shame. So shame was created out of patriarchal religion so that it can brainwash the masses and control them, basically, right? Put them in order. Organize the chaos. They tried to organize the chaos. What they did, that ultimately, was create more destruction in the attempt to organize the chaos. And so all you have to do to see this is understand the world you're living in. It's all around you all the time, isn't it? And so these are the things that I want to talk about here, is opening Pandora's box, looking at these very abstract ideas, because they're very abstract. Because when you enter the negative zero, now you're inside of the primordial chaos. And how do you know your way around it without getting lost in all this abstraction? Is, well, how well do you know the correspondence of it outside in the A sides? You have to observe human behavior. You have to have a desire and a passion to understand sociologically what's going on here, how people are compartmentalized and why they're organized in the ways they're organized, and then understand that and then follow the same line, kind of like a rope into the well, so that you won't get lost. It's the same correspondence into this soup. You know what I'm saying? Soup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up this laptop. Give me a second, because I have to type in my password all the time, because I have the secrets of the universe in here, and I can't let it just be open. All right, let me see what you guys are saying. Terry, empathetic medium, aka witch. Yes. Yeah, man. When people use the term Wicca, and I'm sorry there are any Wiccans in here, it's fine. I'm not trying to throw any shade, nothing like that. I'm just saying that own the term witch, because that's what it is. It's kind of like any negative label that has been thrown on anyone. I think the way to alchemize it is to just own it. And witch is actually the truth of what it is that we are. And so, yeah, Northern Witches in the house. Carmen, here you go. She's from Canada. Carmen, you see Terry's on? Yeah, you too. And then look at, there's my sister too, Patricia Mitchell from South Africa. There you go. We got the whole world in our hands, man. Right here. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about, for the next 5 minutes or so, about colonization, that ugly C word, colonization, and some observations I've been making recently, well, for a while now, actually, about this whole New Age movement, the Wiccan movement, a lot of people, women in particular too, who are practicing witchcraft and all kinds of other magical arts. And it's interesting to me how to see them practicing the same colonization in their work as, the people that, they're against colonizers and against the way of the colonizer, and very critical about today's society, which is great, absolutely right. But to dig deeper in the dirt to see what it is that we are projecting, because we ourselves as women, and we ourselves as people of color, are also colonized still. So just because we see the colonizer, the male and the white person, right, and just to be very sort of generalized right now, just because we see the colonization and the way that a lot of white folks have been disconnected from the root of the earth, because they've traded in their nature-based religion for capitalism, which they didn't even know that they did. We can talk about that too and how that happened. But we as people of color and as women have also internalized this colonization as well. And so it's really interesting to me when I go into a lot of these witch groups, spiritual groups, even in the occult, and I watch people doing the same thing over and over again. They make fun of Christians and Christianity and Jesus, but they love Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley's a new Jesus, everybody. Aleister Crowley's a new Jesus. I'm going to take a sip to that. You know what I mean? This is the Thelema. I don't know if you guys know about Thelema or not. This is the occult. And it's really interesting to see how a lot of times a lot of men still, even in the occult, center the phallus. And this is what Christianity did. They centered the phallus and continue to center the phallus. They don't think they center the phallus. They think they center the holy whore, the vagina, the worshiping of the goddess. But it's just another form of idolization. And anytime we idolize anyone or anything, we dehumanize them. So this is what is happening. Sweetie, she's going to eat the salt. My cat's going to eat the salt. Anyway, this is what I see happening in the magical arts and so on. Some of you guys might remember a couple of months ago, I talked about Becky and the witch. You guys remember that? How many here remember me making that post in the spring sometime? It was like April. I posted this update. It said something like, Becky thinks she's a witch now because she goes to Whole Foods and buys sage, and now she's a witch. You know me, if you are on my timeline, I'm very flippant and I just put shit out there. It's kind of like a deck of cards, the things that come out of my mouth, I just throw them out there. And that was the first thing in all my Facebook career history that anything of mine has gone viral. And I thought it was pretty funny that it had to do with witchcraft. And it started to show up in all these different Facebook pages. Some of you guys remember that. It started to show up in all these other Facebook witch pages, pagan pages, and then they would create it, like they would rebrand it, around their brand, which is fine, whatever. That's what they did. People were pissed. They were really angry about that. But how many of them understand that there is no such thing as good and evil? And there are a lot of witches to this day that talk about, we can talk about what good and evil is in terms of ethics, right? And natural order and the universal law of nature. But how many of you guys have ever thought about or questioned your assumptions whether you should do this magical spell or not because it's not right? Oh, I'm a white witch. Oh, I'm from the light. Oh, I practice white magic, not black magic. I had a flash of magic. That is an incredible amount of cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance does not help anyone with their magic. If you're calling yourself a witch, you must understand something, okay? You must understand that witches, the only law that they follow is the law of nature. What is true for the priest, what is true for the rabbi, and what is true for the Muslim cleric, all three of them, if they were to each have an egg in their hand at the same time, throw the egg up in the air, the egg's going to fall for all three of them. So the egg thing must be true, right? The egg stuff that falls for all of them, that the truth must be in there somewhere, because these are all three different men saying that each of their truth is the truth, but then there's gravity, right? Because the gravity mocks their bullshit because it must be nature that's the truth. You hear me? It must be that. And so anyway, I've noticed this. I'm wondering if you've noticed this. Maybe you even think about wondering if you shouldn't do certain things because it's not correct or it's not right. What does that mean? Are you talking about this in morality? What is the moral thing to do? Because if that's what you're doing, then that's religion, right? So that's something different. And this is what I have noticed. So, any of you guys have any questions about anything so far? Like I said, I have a little bit of a lag time. And anything you want me to expand on a little bit more? Or something you want to say that I can see what you read and bring that up? Or an example, for instance, that you have run across around this idea that I'm sharing right now around witches and women who say that they have knowledge, but you see that they are projecting these same moral constructs into the work that they're sharing and the work that they're doing. I'm going to go and take a sip of tequila. By the way, I know I showed you a minute ago, but here's Larry the Devil. Can you see him? He's spanking Becky. She's the blonde Barbie doll. Because that's what she gets. Okay? That's what she gets. I ask women if they're witches all the time, and a lot freak out. Do you think that they freak out, Terry, because they're unaware of their own colonization? Oh, are they practicing witchcraft when you ask them that? Or burning sage? Or, burning a candle and it's the moon and they're on Facebook talking about it? Is that what you're talking about? Because they're like, no, I do shamanic work. Yeah. It's just a term that has mud all over it because of our own internalized misogyny. This is what I call, a lot of them are. This is what I call the enabling Eve. Well, some of you guys have been around long enough to recognize the language that I use, but they aren't aware that that's what they're doing. Yeah, exactly. That's my point. They don't. I feel like Eve is the colonized woman, and Lilith is the decolonized woman. Now, is it that simple? It's on a spectrum, isn't it? And some of you guys have been around long enough to know about my hashtags, Enabling Eve and Lilith the Liberator. Now, if you're on this page, I don't know if you know about Lilith or not. I don't want to assume that everyone who's on this page knows what I'm talking about. And just in case that you don't, we know who Eve is, right? And we don't know, some people don't know who Lilith is. A lot of people are learning. In the past several years, there's been a huge rise in people asking these questions. But Lilith was Adam's first wife, according to Jewish mythology, okay? And she was made of the same soot. In other words, she wasn't taken from his rib or whatever. She was made of the same mud, the same thing as he was, and they were both equals. But she wouldn't get beneath him, right? And she wouldn't listen to him. Like, she was kind of wanting to do her own thing, and he wanted to control her. So she said no, and he was like, well, I don't like you. And she's like, well, then I'm gonna go off to the Red Sea and fuck a bunch of demons, and so she's like, I'm gonna go live my life. So she did, and so she spoke the name of God and blasphemed the whole damn, she just ruined the party for everybody apparently, and she took off. And then all of a sudden God was like, and then Adam was like, I don't know who's gonna make me a sandwich. And so then God was like, okay. And then he brought, he made Eve out of Adam, and then now Adam is molded Eve, and she's docile and she's enabling. Now, whether she's enabling because she doesn't know any better, which is what Terry brought up, that a lot of these women don't know what they're doing. Sometimes it's because they haven't fallen hard off of cloud nine yet. There hasn't been some kind of devastating situation that has forced their hand to force them to actually look inward and ask these questions they never asked about themselves before, because they've been enabled by patriarchy. They like it. They're snuggled deep inside. Eve the sandwich maker. Yeah, exactly, right? It's just there she is making sandwiches for everybody. All lip dicks eating sandwiches. Eve's making sandwiches and lemonade. So, it's one of those things that, does she know that she's doing it? If she doesn't, we can't really be mad. We can be mad. But if she doesn't know any better, it's almost like a child. There's an innocence that hasn't yet been broken, right? So then we kind of okay, well, we can understand on some level, but then we're taking on all the hard work because of that, because we already fell off the cloud, and here we are, our hands are dirty. Terry, a lot have patriarchal religious, yes, baggage, punishment by priests in childhood and that kind of garbage. Exactly. This is what I'm talking about. This is the internalized colonization, the internalized shame, and fear that they're going to be shamed. So if they haven't experienced the shame that they feel inside, it's because they haven't gone ahead and just told people what they really thought. They haven't lived their life in authentic ways because they're afraid for their lives. Their lives literally depend on the machine staying the way that it is, on men maintaining the positions that they have, and they're snuggled inside the house, you see. They're in the heart of the house, and patriarchy will protect them as long as they bear the children, as long as they're docile, as long as they perform their role that has been given to them in the machine, so they can continue to enable this fuckery, basically. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't. And so, yes, a lot of them, they don't even know. And a lot of them might say that they're not even Christian or religious at all, but they've already been so colonized because of the many generations that that's how deeply embedded these ideas of good and evil are. I have a friend of mine who's constantly telling me that she's a good witch. What does that mean? She's a good witch, and I'm a bad witch, and I'm the one who's mean, but she's good. And she doesn't like Christianity. So, but she's always making fun of Christianity and Puritanism, but at the same time, she's the good witch, and I'm the bad witch. So this is a dilemma right now, right? This is a dilemma. And that's why I'm encouraging everybody that if you have friends in your lives that you see are doing this, and you have the same awareness, then I feel like it is sometimes it's our responsibility to find a way to alchemize this so that we can share it with the world. When and if you're ready, because self-preservation first, right? I understand that. I really do. And right now, vampires are waiting for the light, right? I mean, they're just waiting for people to show up with some raw, real, just juicy, blood to suck off of. They're just everywhere. So I get it. But if you are a woman who's watching this and you feel like you're looking for something, you can't put your finger on it, I would say that, again, to look at your grandmothers, look at your mother, and what role did they play in your household? What was their story? Do you know their story? We don't even know our own stories. I dare you to get the story of your grandmother. I dare you to get the story of your mother. And then whatever you feel that they are hiding, or whatever you see they are hiding, I dare you to go into that hiding and pull it out and look at it, because this is the story of you too. This will help you understand the answers to the questions you have about your path, why that path is calling you, and then it'll help you more and more find the courage to surrender to that path, because it's actually in your lineage. It's in your blood. So we do have free will, but it's almost like we have free will as long as it's contained in this more powerful and deeper truth of our lineage. It's almost like you have a responsibility when you start to awaken, and you're the only one in your family who's awakening, which is the scapegoat, right? The scapegoat. Generational genesis. I like that, Elizabeth. It's like the person in the family that awakens will always be the scapegoat. And I've always said the way of the truth is via the scapegoat. So when you look in any situation, especially if you're the scapegoat, it's easy to spot the others, right? Because you already know who that looks like and what that looks like. When you go to a party, when you're in a classroom, anywhere you go. And then in the greater scheme of things, women, black folks, brown folks, indigenous folks. So it's micro to the macro, right? The scapegoat archetype. Anytime somebody is interested in the nature of truth, I always say, look towards your mother line, look at the scapegoats, and look into nature. The mother line, scapegoat, and nature. These three things are the way that'll open a path toward truth. And then your path is going to be different than mine. But if we both wind up at the universal law together, then that's cool, right? Because we're like, this is the only law. It's this universal law of nature. Something you can't explain. You have to directly walk the path and have the direct visceral experience of these aha moments that it feels like a remembering, when you have these aha moments, these epiphanies. You know what epiphanies are? They are moments of remembering through this amnesia somehow. And so I really want to just implore you to allow yourself to surrender a little more every day to that path of, yes, the colors are many, the light is one. It really is. Don't go into the light! Like Poltergeist, remember that? Don't go into the light! Yeah. You guys have any questions? Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go. I see the same thing. I really didn't write anything down in particular to talk about today because I wanted to just sort of talk about this idea around colonization. And colonization switched over. This is what I mean by the emperor has no clothes, but the emperor is now changing clothes. So in order to see what the new emperor is, who the new emperor is, look at the transfer of power. It's that easy. And when you're looking for a spiritual path, look to your mother line, to the scapegoat, and nature herself, because the lion is not pretending to be a tiger. The lion shows up and is just the lion. It doesn't have an agenda. You know the agenda of the lion. When it rains, you're going to get wet, because the rain is going to get you wet. And the sun comes up every morning, no matter how much bullshit we continue to do here and tantrums that humanity's throwing, the sun's going to continue to show up. So, let's see. That's the only thing that's never lied to me is that stuff. So it must be the way, right? So I just implore you to go sit in nature, man. Go sit in nature. And always look to the negative of the photograph. What is not being said? What is not being seen? What do you feel and perceive is hiding somewhere? Why are people overreacting to this? That must be a projection. Do you have any thoughts on ancestral karma in relation to this subject matter? Like how, it says Seymour, so let me go here. Now I gotta type my stupid. I'm gonna read it, Terry. Give me 1 second. Okay. Here we go. Do you have any ancestral karma in relation to this subject matter? Like how we've inherited their spiritual burdens? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's connected to something that I was talking about earlier. And so, for instance, in my family, I grew up Mexican-American in San Antonio, Texas, in the West Side. And my grandmother, she grew up in the San Jose Missions, which there's a native tribe that was historically in those missions, so she's actually part of that native lineage. And isn't that sad that I can't remember the name of that very particular tribe right now? Which these people, though, are from the line of the Diné people, which are the Inuit tribe and also the Navajo. So this is all the lineage and then into the San Jose missions. Can you imagine the native people and what they experienced in the missions from the Spanish, Can you imagine that experience, right? So there's my grandmother's line. That's why I'm bringing her up. And just for the sake of bringing my grandfather's line up, because he raised me, he's partly Panapachi and Mexican. So when you think about all of these things, and what kind of levels of projection did they receive. So when I asked you to think about being native in the missions with the Spanish, it makes you kind of like, oh shit, I can't imagine what that's going to be like, right? I mean, why did you feel that way? Because you already feel the shudder. You understand what happened to these people, whether it's the people at the missions, the San Jose missions, whether it's the Navajo, whether it's the Apaches, whether what happened to them with the colonizers. And so then imagine that level of experience when you grow up in that experience, or you're passed down, whatever pain, trauma occurred, we're going to project those onto our next born. Maybe we'll be more hyper vigilant. Maybe we won't like the child. Maybe we will project onto the daughter a sort of competitive nature because we are afraid for our own survival deep inside, because we keep passing that on through the mother line. This is how I think that borderline personalities have become more common in women than in men, because if you look at the root of borderline personality disorder, what is it? It's the fear of abandonment. Well, the feminine has been abandoned. The land has been abandoned. Everything's been commoditized that is of nature, right? So that is an abandonment. Now it's for sale. We have horrified our mother. We have horrified God, because nature, right? See? That creates a psychosis in this collective way, and so this is going to be passed on, and this trauma is passed on in the lineage. And so to me, that's like psychosis, what's in the mind regarding your question, Terry, and the projection from the mind. To me, the psychosis that starts to occur like intergenerationally, that does create like a feeling of being spiritually possessed by the false one. The false one is the false self, and it is perpetuating the way it's behaving because it was passed on by the line, by the mother in particular. And so if we've abandoned the mother, we create more trauma for females, and we also lift boys up, because that's how they come into being more narcissistic as well, because they take the place of the father who's missing. Somehow he's not around, because he's a narcissist too. It's just like this awful. So to me, that's true spiritual possession. People who are truly riddled with narcissistic personality disorder, just personality disorders in general, is a spiritual possession in my eyes. And so when we think about your question, and the karma is a cause and effect. And to me, this is how I have observed this to be true. That this is what spiritual possession is. This is what karma is. This is what I have to carry when I say that my mother dealt with a lot of narcissism. My grandmother was just borderline, and I was a scapegoat. So that was a burden for me, and for me to become aware of my own traumas and my own abandonment issues, because of the scapegoatism and this psychological warfare going on with me and my family and emotional abuse. This was the burden I carried right forward, but this is also where I broke the line because of my own hard work and all of your own hard work. If you're doing this hard work and breaking the cycle of that sort of curse, which is what the burden is. It's like a curse. So I hope I've answered your question or I've made the connections to that. And then let's see, Michael, you asked something. What do you suggest that someone who knows virtually nothing about their own familial heritage and has nowhere to turn to find out? Oh, what do they do? Well, that's a really good question. I think that, again, there's so much power in the individual. And that's really hard, because if you don't have access to your mother line, right, that is really difficult. But if you were to just observe this is going into something else that I actually would like to talk about soon, and we could talk about this more fully in another live, because remember earlier I talked about the connecting between what's going on in the world to the correspondence in the primordial chaos, right? How do you observe the social phenomenon when it comes to these constructs that we've created, right? So like racism, sexism, classism, just all the isms and all the different ways that we have decentralized people and centered other people, right? When we look at that, I would say, look at your place in that hegemonic map, and maybe that's a big word, hegemonic, which is like a cultural map. And practice self-knowledge to the point where you don't really need to know your mother's lineage, because in a lot of ways, that's what I did first, because I was going through so much trauma that it was like I had to practice. I had to say, who am I? And what the fuck? How did I wind up here? And then I had to sort of walk my way from where I was, like wounded and fucked up, from that moment inside of myself, and say, oh my God, why do I keep reacting to life this way? Why do I keep on dating narcissistic men? Why do I keep on allowing myself to devalue myself? And wait a minute. And all of a sudden it starts to like open up like a giant umbrella. And it's from where I was at. And then because I did that, then I saw my mother's lineage. But I just so happened to have my mother still around, my grandmother still around, and my family. But it started in the moment I was in. And I had to ask myself, how did I wind up here? This pain that keeps gnawing at me, what is it telling me? To start the individual. And it's interesting because when I did that, it helped me see my mother more clearly. It helped me see my grandmother more clearly, because I couldn't start with them. I tried, but I was externalizing it, right? And the reason I suggested earlier to people who are looking for a spiritual path to take, and I brought up the importance of their mother and their grandmother, is because I'm saying that's a place to start, to look at what is the lineage of your mother. If that's not around, then this is what I did. And then I found my mother. Then I saw my grandmother after I had to go inside myself and say, why do I keep getting pissed off at these things? What are these things that keep triggering me? Why am I so angry every time I see someone lying? Or why am I so angry? And then allow that to tell you, because in the end of the day, it's all about the individual and self-knowledge. Everything else is external. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, because it was actually because of my individual trauma I was impacted by my family that forced me to finally go inward to ask these questions and just realize all the veils that I had over myself. And then as soon as I opened that up, I was able to see my grandmother more clearly and my mother more clearly, and as a result able to forgive more easily, because I think that forgiveness is understanding. Once you reach understanding, you forgive. That doesn't mean that you're like, when you want to get abused anymore. It means that okay, well, I get it, It doesn't mean it was a good thing or bad thing or whatever. It just means I understand now. So psychedelics may help with this. Yes, Elizabeth, psychedelics do help. But let me tell you what I've learned about psychedelics. I think psychedelics help if you especially have already done a lot of hard inner work. And, because, you have this ayahuasca thing happening now, right? Where all these very sort of privileged or people with money, there's a lot of white folks too right now doing this, white men who have the means and so on, and they go to do an ayahuasca retreat, or they just do ayahuasca and all of a sudden they think they know everything. And part of the problem with that is that if they already have a tendency toward like narcissism in particular, and then they do psychedelics, mushrooms or ayahuasca, it seems to inflame the narcissism, because they still have too many material comforts. There's many levels of hell that they haven't fallen through yet, when it comes to hitting rock bottom. Their money, their status, their maleness, their looks, or whatever keeps enabling them from falling all the way to rock bottom. And so I've noticed this, and this is what I have seen with men like that forever. that all of a sudden they're narcissists, and then they go do ayahuasca, and all of a sudden they found out that they were the king of some shit, whatever. King of lip dicks. King of lip dicks. So, anyway, I hope that I've answered your questions, and I hope that what I've said actually makes some sense around the karma and the lineage, and being able to, if you don't have access to that, being able to observe and go inward, because that's always the answer, to go inward. Sometimes it's scary for people to start there. So I ask them to look at their immediate surroundings, their families, dynamics, and all of that. So I think that's what makes it, powerful. But it always brings you back to yourself. I mean, it's always you. You are your own salvation. You are your own promise of redemption. So, and that's it, because anything else, you're giving your power to something outside of yourself, and power corrupts, right? Power corrupts, and we're seeing this in our governments and our systems. And this is what Christianity has done in general. Is it has created a mass world of people that think that they cannot be happy unless they consume, and consume, and the whole sort of scapegoating of Jesus needed to happen in order to build the empire that we have. So he had to become the idol so that we can look outside of ourselves for our redemption and our salvation, not just in Jesus, but in purchasing things and consuming things and in buying things and spending money and doing all this stuff. They need you to rely on the system outside, so that you will never encounter the secret, most powerful truth, and that you are your own redeemer. You are your own God. So this is the biggest secret of all. Responsible. I'm responsible, man. I don't like it, though, sometimes either. I don't like it. All right, Larry? See, Larry? It's fucking exhausting. But it is what it is. We can be a support to each other, but we cannot be each other's saviors. It doesn't work. Look all around you, right? It doesn't work. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say, unless you guys want to talk about something else, have another question. I do want to end this with a powerful quote that it's probably become my most famous quote. It's going to become something I'm going to use a lot, and it's my most favorite quote is what I meant to say. And it's from that show, what's that show called? Queen of the South, man. Have you seen Queen of the South on Netflix? That bitch is bad. She's bad, man. So, I heard this quote in that show, and I was like, the last time I was moved by a quote like this was when I first heard that quote by Nelson Mandela, that Marianne Williamson, was talking about forever. But it's like, our deepest fear is we are powerful beyond our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us. Right? What are you saying? There is no God but man. Yes. Humankind. So we're afraid of our own power. So we want to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you. No, you give it to me. No, you tell me what to do. You tell me what to do. And this is the whole dynamic between, the dominatrix and her slave. That's just what I've heard. I don't know. I read it somewhere. It's all over the place. Power. It's all about power. So I want to end this then, unless there's any more questions. But it's a 5 till, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. But before I do, I want to share my other favorite quote of all time, other than that other quote, and that is, there is a flower that grows in the darkness, lily of the valley. So many reasons it shouldn't exist. It must be celebrated. You are one of those flowers. So you may as well bloom because it's going to be dark for a while. Fly your freak flag. Fly it high. Yeah. Do it. Fuck it. It's the apocalypse. Okay? Man, y'all are cool. I wish you were here. We could all hang out in real time. But I hope you'll join me next Sunday. And I don't quite know yet what I'm going to talk about next Sunday. There's so many things inside Pandora's box. Like, I can just pick all kinds of stuff. But if you guys have anything in particular that you want me to talk about, you want to bring into the conversation, that you want to explore, please let me know, because I'll go ahead and do that. Wait, I want to read this. There is a beauty unspeakable in the heart of corruption, where the flowers are... Yes. Thanks, Michael, for sharing that. These universal truths are truths because they're universal truths. So I hope that you will join me next time. Bring any ideas that you have. Let me know there's something else that you want to talk about that's really in particular. Comment that on here. Send me a message or whatever to Wanderers Hollow, or if you want to write me on my Facebook, then do that because I have a week to prepare for it. So yeah, come back and talk to me next time. I'll still be wearing my hat and my priest thing then Larry's going to be hanging out, and you might be able to meet Lawrence, his brother, who's... Can you bring Lawrence?
Show him the altar.
He wants me to show you my altar, so I'm going to do that.
Like, you can hold this from here and...
Oh, he's so cute. Isn't that awesome that I have a man who, like, look at this. I mean, I was like, what? He was like, yeah, don't just wear that. Show them all the devils.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so...
Take them on a tour.
Yeah. So, I'm going to try. Sorry. This isn't fucking CBS, but, whatever.
You're all good.
All right, can you move that table? Move that table all the way. Let's go look at Larry spanking. Where is he? Can you see him? I don't know if you can see him, though. Oh, there it is. Larry spanking Becky in the butt because she's asking for it. And that's fucking crazy ass. She's the good witch. All right, guys. Bye. We'll see you next time. I love you. Bye.